The security guard's eyes followed him from the moment he stepped through the revolving glass doors of Morrison, Wells, and Associates. It was 8:47 a.m. on a crisp Monday morning in downtown Chicago, and Malik Washington was about to walk into the most prestigious law firm in the Midwest for the first time. At 32 years old, he stood 6 feet tall with a lean, athletic build that filled out his charcoal gray Tom Ford suit perfectly. His dark skin seemed to absorb the morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and his close-cropped beard framed a face that carried both intelligence and quiet determination. But none of that mattered to the man watching him from behind the marble security desk. What happens when one of the country's most brilliant legal minds walks into a room where nobody expects to see him? The answer will shock you, inspire you, and remind you why assumptions can be the most dangerous weapons of all. Welcome to Voice of the Black, where we shine light on the stories that need to be heard. Before we dive into this incredible journey of justice and vindication, tell us in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe that respect should be based on character, not color, hit that subscribe button and join our community of truth seekers. Malik adjusted his silk tie as he approached the reception desk, his Italian leather briefcase in hand. The lobby of Morrison, Wells and Associates was everything you'd expect from a firm that charged $800 an hour, polished marble floors, original oil paintings, and furniture that cost more than most people's cars. The receptionist, a blonde woman in her early 30s named Patricia, looked up from her computer screen with the kind of smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good morning," Malik said, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who'd argued cases before the Supreme Court. "I'm here to see." "Excuse me, sir," Patricia interrupted, her tone shifting to something cooler, more guarded. "Are you here for delivery?" Malik paused, his eyebrows raising slightly. "I'm sorry." "A delivery," she repeated, looking past him as if searching for packages or a dolly. "We usually have deliveries come through the service entrance on the side of the building." The lobby fell silent, except for the soft jazz playing from hidden speakers. Malik felt the familiar weight of a moment he'd experienced too many times before, that split second when someone looked at him and saw only what they expected to see, not who he actually was. "I'm not here for delivery," he said evenly. "I'm here for a meeting." Patricia's smile became even more strained. "Do you have an appointment?" "Our attorneys are very busy, and we don't typically take walk-ins." Behind him, Malik could hear whispered conversations from other visitors in the waiting area. A man in a navy suit leaned over to his companion and muttered something under his breath. The security guard, a heavy-set white man with graying temples, had stood up from his desk and was slowly making his way over. "Sir," the guard said, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed, "is there a problem here?" Malik turned to face him, maintaining his calm demeanor despite the heat building in his chest. "No problem at all. I'm simply trying to check in for my meeting." The guard looked him up and down, taking an expensive suit, the confident posture, but somehow still seeing something that didn't fit his expectations. "What kind of meeting?" "A business meeting," Malik replied, not volunteering more information than necessary. Patricia cleared her throat. "Sir, if you're looking for employment opportunities, you need to submit your resume through our website. We don't hire through walk-ins." The assumption hit like a slap. Malik had graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Law School, had clerked for a federal judge, had built a reputation as one of the most formidable civil rights attorneys in the country. He'd been featured on the cover of Legal Times magazine just 6 months ago. And yet, here he stood, being treated like someone who'd wandered in off the street looking for a job. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Malik said, his voice still controlled but with an edge that hadn't been there before. The security guard stepped closer. "Look, buddy, maybe you're lost. There's a McDonald's about 3 blocks down if you're looking for that kind of work." The lobby went completely quiet. Even the soft jazz seemed to pause. Malik felt every eye in the room on him, watching to see how he'd react. He'd been in situations like this before, moments where he could either explode in righteous anger or maintain his dignity while proving his point. He chose the latter. "I'm Malik Washington," he said clearly, loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. "I'm here for my 9 a.m. meeting with senior partner James Morrison to discuss my partnership agreement." Patricia blinked rapidly, suddenly looking less certain. The security guard frowned, clearly not believing what he'd just heard. "Partnership agreement?" Patricia repeated, her voice smaller now. Malik reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick manila folder. "Perhaps you'd like to call Mr. Morrison's office and confirm." For the first time since he'd walked in, uncertainty flickered across Patricia's face. She glanced at her computer screen, then at the security guard, then back at Malik. Let me just..." She stammered, reaching for her phone. But before she could dial, the elevator doors at the far end of the lobby opened with a soft chime. James Morrison himself stepped out, a distinguished man in his late 50s with silver hair and a presence that commanded respect. He was deep in conversation with another partner, but when his eyes swept the lobby and landed on Malik, his face lit up with genuine pleasure. "Malik," Morrison called out, striding across the marble floor with his hand extended. Right on time, as always. The lobby seemed to freeze. Patricia's hand hovered over the phone receiver. The security guard's mouth fell slightly open. The whispered conversations stopped mid-sentence. Morrison reached Malik and shook his hand warmly before turning to address the reception desk. "Patricia, I trust you taking good care of Mr. Washington. He's joining us as a senior partner, specializing in civil rights and constitutional law." Patricia's face had gone pale. Yes, sir." "Of course." Morrison turned back to Malik with a smile. "I have to say, I'm excited about this partnership. Your work on the Bradley case was absolutely brilliant, overturning that discriminatory housing policy. That's exactly the kind of impact we want to make here." "Thank you, James," Malik replied, his voice warm but his eyes still holding the memory of what had just transpired. "I'm looking forward to working with the team." "Come on up," Morrison said, gesturing toward the elevator. "The other partners are eager to meet you. We've got coffee and pastries in the conference room." As they walked toward the elevator, Morrison continued talking about cases and strategies, but Malik could feel the weight of every stare in the lobby. When the elevator doors opened, Morrison stepped aside to let him enter first, a small gesture of respect that felt enormous after what had just happened. Just before the doors closed, Malik caught a glimpse of Patricia frantically typing at her computer and the security guard standing frozen by his desk, probably wondering if he still had a job. The elevator rose smoothly toward the 40th floor, and Morrison filled the silence with talk about the firm's recent victories and upcoming challenges. But Malik's mind was still processing what had just occurred downstairs. It wasn't the first time, and he knew it wouldn't be the last. But each incident reminded him why his work mattered so much. "Malik," Morrison said as they reached their floor, "I hope you didn't have any trouble getting in this morning. Sometimes our security can be a bit overzealous." Malik smiled tightly. "Nothing I couldn't handle." Morrison's expression grew more serious. "If there was a problem, I want to know about it. We pride ourselves on being a welcoming, inclusive firm." "I appreciate that, James. Let's focus on the work ahead." The elevator doors opened to reveal a hallway lined with floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a breathtaking view of Lake Michigan. Original artwork adorned the walls, and the carpet was thick enough to absorb every footstep. This was the inner sanctum of legal power in Chicago, and Malik was about to become part of it. But even as Morrison led him toward the conference room where the other senior partners waited, Malik couldn't shake the memory of those moments in the lobby. The assumptions, the dismissal, the casual cruelty of being reduced to a stereotype in an expensive suit. The conference room was impressive, a long mahogany table surrounded by leather chairs, with windows offering a panoramic view of the city. 8 senior partners rose as Morrison and Malik entered, their faces showing varying degrees of curiosity, interest, and in some cases, barely concealed surprise. "Everyone," Morrison announced, I'd like you to meet Malik Washington, our newest senior partner. The introductions were professional, polite, but Malik had spent enough time in rooms like this to read the subtle dynamics at play. Some partners seemed genuinely welcoming. They'd clearly done their research and knew about his reputation. Others appeared more reserved, their handshakes a bit too brief, their smiles not quite reaching their eyes. Dr. Elizabeth Chun, one of only 2 other people of color among the senior partners, stepped forward with a warm smile. Malik, I've been following your work for years. Your brief in the Martinez voting rights case was masterful. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm looking forward to collaborating. As the meeting progressed, Morrison outlined Malik's role and the cases he'd be taking lead on. The discussion was productive, focused on legal strategy and firm business, but Malik remained alert to the undercurrents in the room. He'd learned long ago that success wasn't just about being brilliant. It was about navigating the complex social and political dynamics that existed in every workplace, especially in predominantly white institutions. After an hour, the meeting broke up and Morrison walked Malik to his new office. It was corner suite with windows facing both the lake and the downtown skyline, a space that clearly conveyed status and importance. "This is incredible, James," Malik said, setting his briefcase on a massive oak desk. "Thank you." Morrison lingered in the doorway. "Malik, I want to address what happened downstairs." Malik looked up from examining the law books that lined the built-in shelves. "It's fine, James." "Really?" "No, it's not fine. Patricia called me right after you came up. She was concerned about how she'd handled your arrival." "Concerned?" Morrison closed the office door behind him. "She told me what happened. How she assumed you were there for a delivery. How our security guard made that comment about McDonald's." His face was flushed with embarrassment. "That's completely unacceptable." Malik sat down in his new leather chair, studying Morrison's expression. "What are you going to do about it?" "Patricia will be attending sensitivity training immediately. As for the security guard, well, let's just say he won't be making assumptions about our clients or partners anymore." "You're firing him?" Morrison's jaw was set. A man who represents our firm to the public cannot treat people that way. What if you had been a client? What if you had been a prospective partner who decided to take your talents elsewhere because of how you were treated? Malik nodded slowly. He appreciated Morrison's response, but he also knew that firing one security guard wouldn't change the deeper issues at play. Still, it was something. "I want you to know," Morrison continued, "that I personally recruited you not just because of your legal brilliance, but because I believe you can help us become the firm we claim to be: diverse, inclusive, representative of the communities we serve." That's a heavy burden to place on one person's shoulders, James. Morrison looked uncomfortable. "I don't mean to suggest that you're responsible for fixing everything, but your presence here, your perspective, your success, it matters." After Morrison left, Malik stood at his window, looking out at the city below. Chicago stretched out before him, a metropolis of opportunity and challenge, of progress and persistent problems. From his 40th floor perch, the people on the streets looked tiny, insignificant, but he knew better. Each of those dots represented a story, a struggle, a dream deferred or achieved. His phone buzzed with a text from his wife, Keisha. "How was the first day? Did you shake things up yet?" He smiled, typing back, "You could say that. I'll tell you all about it tonight." The rest of the morning passed in meetings with potential clients and case reviews with junior associates. By lunch, word had spread throughout the firm about the new senior partner and, inevitably, about the incident in the lobby. Some associates made a point of stopping by his office to introduce themselves. Others seemed to find reasons to walk past his door, stealing glances at the man who had caused such a stir on his first day. Around 2 p.m., there was a soft knock on his door. "Come in," Malik called. Patricia entered, looking nervous and contrite. She was carrying a small plant in a decorative pot. "Mr. Washington, I wanted to apologize for this morning. There's no excuse for how I treated you." Malik leaned back in his chair, studying her face. Apology accepted, Patricia. She set the plan on his desk. A small peace lily in a ceramic pot painted with abstract designs. I brought this as a welcome gift. And I wanted you to know that I've been with this firm for 8 years, and I've never... I don't usually... Patricia, Malik said gently, we all make assumptions sometimes. The question is, what we do when we realize we were wrong. She nodded, tears gathering in her eyes. I was raised better than that. My parents taught me to treat everyone with respect, then honor their teaching going forward. After she left, Malik examined the peace lily. It was a small gesture, but a meaningful one. Real change often started with moments like this. Individual encounters that force people to confront their own biases and choose to do better. The afternoon brought a steady stream of work. Case files to review, briefs to analyze, strategy sessions with other attorneys. By 6 p.m., most of the office had cleared out, but Malik remained, poring over the details of his first major case as a Morrison-Wells partner. The Bradley case Morrison had mentioned was complex. A class action lawsuit against a suburban school district that had been systematically underfunding schools in predominantly black neighborhoods, while pouring resources into schools in whiter, wealthier areas. It was exactly the kind of case that had driven Malik to law in the first place. Growing up in Detroit, he'd seen firsthand how institutional racism could shape lives and limit opportunities. His own elementary school had outdated textbooks and leaking ceilings, while the school across town, in the white suburb where his mother cleaned houses, had computer labs and arts programs. The disparity had planted a seed of righteous anger that law school had taught him to channel into effective advocacy. His phone rang, interrupting his reading. The caller ID showed his mother's number. "Hi, Mama." "Baby, how was your first day at that fancy law firm?" Dorothy Washington's voice carried the warmth and strength that had sustained their family through difficult years. She worked 3 jobs to keep Malik in school, cleaning offices by night and houses by day, never complaining, always believing her son would make something of himself. "It was interesting," Malik said, leaning back in his chair. "Interesting how? Did they try to put you in your place?" His mother knew him well enough to read the tone in his voice. "Something like that. But I handled it." "Course you did. You got that from me. We don't back down from nobody." They talked for 20 minutes about family news and neighborhood gossip. Before hanging up, Dorothy said, "Malik, baby, I'm proud of you. Not because of that fancy office or the money, but because you're using your gifts to help people. That's what matters." After the call ended, Malik sat in the gathering darkness of his office, thinking about his mother's words. The view from his window had transformed as evening fell, the city lights creating patterns of gold and white against the black sky. It was beautiful, but it was also a reminder of the distance between where he sat and where he'd come from. His thoughts were interrupted by another knock on his door. This time it was Elizabeth Chun, the partner who greeted him so warmly that morning. "Working late on your first day?" she asked, settling into one of the chairs across from his desk. "Old habits. Plus, I want to make sure I'm fully prepared for the Bradley case." Elizabeth smiled. "That case is going to make or break your reputation here. It's high profile, politically sensitive, and the opposing counsel is known for playing dirty. Sounds perfect for me. That's what I was hoping you'd say." Elizabeth's expression grew more serious. "Malik, I heard about what happened in the lobby this morning." News travels fast. In a firm this size, everything travels fast. I wanted you to know that some of us have been waiting for someone like you to join the partnership. Someone like me? Someone with credentials to be unquestionable, the backbone to stand up to the old boys network, and the passion to take on the cases that really matter. She paused. "I've been here for 6 years, and I've had to pick my battles carefully. Maybe now I won't have to fight alone." They talked for another hour about cases, firm politics, and the challenges of being one of the few people of color in a prestigious white institution. Elizabeth shared stories of her own experiences. The subtle slights, the times her expertise was questioned, the extra scrutiny she faced. "The thing is," she said as she prepared to leave, "your being here changes the dynamic. They can't dismiss both of us as easily as they could dismiss one." After Elizabeth left, Malik remained at his desk until nearly 9 p.m., reading case law and preparing for challenges ahead. When he finally gathered his things to leave, the office was quiet except for the security guard making his rounds. A different guard than the one from that morning, he noted. The lobby was empty except for the night cleaning crew. As Malik waited for his ride, he thought about the custodial staff moving quietly through the building, emptying trash cans and vacuuming carpets. How many of them had college degrees? How many had dreams deferred by circumstance or bias? How many were just as brilliant as the lawyers whose offices they cleaned, but had never been given a chance to show it? His Uber arrived, and as the car pulled away from the curb, Malik looked back at the towering glass building that was now his professional home. Today had been just the beginning. He'd proven he belonged in that lobby, in that conference room, in that corner office. But the real work, the work of using his position to create opportunities for others, to challenge unjust systems, to be the change he wanted to see, that work was still ahead of him. 3 weeks later, Malik sat in a packed courtroom presenting his opening argument in the Bradley case. The school district's lawyers had come prepared for battle, but they hadn't expected the methodical precision with which Malik dismantled their defenses. Using statistical analysis, budget documents, and testimony from teachers and parents, he painted a picture of institutional discrimination so clear that even the most skeptical observers couldn't deny it. The case made headlines not just locally but nationally. Harvard law graduate challenges school segregation in 21st century. Read one. Rising star tackles educational inequality. Proclaimed another. But for Malik, the most meaningful moment came when a young black student from one of the underfunded schools approached him outside the courthouse. "Are you really going to fix our school?" the boy asked. "We're going to try," Malik replied. "But you know what's going to make the biggest difference? You studying hard, believing in yourself, and never letting anyone tell you that you don't belong somewhere." The boy nodded solemnly and ran back to his mother, who was watching from across the street with tears in her eyes. 6 months later, Malik's office wall was covered with framed articles about the Bradley case victory and the $50 million settlement that would transform educational opportunities for thousands of students. But the decoration he treasured most was a hand-drawn thank you card from students at Roosevelt Elementary, one of the schools that would benefit from the settlement. The security incident on his first day had become firm legend, a story told to new associates about assumptions and the importance of treating everyone with respect. Patricia had become one of his most enthusiastic supporters, going out of her way to ensure visiting clients felt welcomed and valued. But perhaps the most significant change was harder to quantify. The firm had begun recruiting more aggressively from historically black colleges and universities. They created a mentorship program for young attorneys from underrepresented backgrounds, and they'd made it clear that bias and discrimination would not be tolerated at any level. On a Friday evening in late autumn, exactly 1 year after his first day, Malik stood again at his office window, watching the sun set over Lake Michigan. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Saw you on the news again, baby. Keep making us proud." He smiled, thinking about that morning a year ago when he walked through those glass doors and been mistaken for a delivery man. The assumptions people made about him hadn't disappeared. He still faced them regularly, in courtrooms and boardrooms at conferences and cocktail parties. But his response had evolved. Instead of just proving them wrong, he now focused on creating spaces where the next generation wouldn't have to prove themselves at all. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Elizabeth Chin entered, carrying a bottle of champagne and wearing a huge grin. "What's the celebration?" he asked. "I just got word from the nominating committee. You're being considered for the State Bar Association's Civil Rights Attorney of the Year award." Malik raised his eyebrows. "Seriously?" "Seriously. The Bradley case, the housing discrimination suit you won last month, your pro bono work with immigration families. It's all adding up. You're making a real impact, Malik. They opened the champagne and toasted not just a potential recognition, but the work still to be done. As they talked, Malik reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. From a kid in Detroit watching his mother clean other people's offices to a senior partner in one of the most prestigious firms in the country, the path had been neither straight nor easy. But every challenge, every moment of doubt, every incident like that first day in the lobby had reinforced his sense of purpose. He wasn't just practicing law. He was fighting for justice. He wasn't just succeeding. He was opening doors. He wasn't just making money. He was making change. Later that evening, as he finally prepared to leave the office, Malik paused at the elevator bank where it all began. The same marble floors, the same soft lighting, but everything had changed. Or maybe everything had stayed the same, and he had simply claimed his rightful place in it. The elevator doors opened, and he stepped inside, heading down to the lobby where his assumptions had been challenged and his resolve had been strengthened. Tomorrow would bring new cases, new challenges, new opportunities to prove that talent, determination, and justice were more powerful than any stereotype. As the elevator descended, Malik Washington allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, not because he had arrived, but because he was still climbing. And with each floor he rose, he was bringing others up with him. The security guard at the front desk, a new hire who'd been properly trained, nodded respectfully as he passed. "Good night, Mr. Washington." "Good night, Marcus. Have a safe evening." And with that, Malik walked through those same glass doors that had once seemed like barriers, now knowing they were merely the entrance to possibilities he was still discovering. Never assume you know someone's story based on how they look or where you think they belong. Talent doesn't have a color, brilliance doesn't have a uniform, and success doesn't always announce itself. The person you overlook today might be the one who changes everything tomorrow. And sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is simply showing up, proving you belong, and then holding the door open for the next person to walk through.